Okay, good morning everyone. So I'm Brendan Clark-Smith. I'm a fellow East Midlander. I'm from Nottingham. I was a councillor in Nottingham for 8 years, represented a place called Clifton, which was a very mixed ward. When it was first built, it was the largest council estate in Europe. So I've got quite a lot of experience in terms of campaigning in some very different and diverse areas. And I think the East Midlands, being as diverse as it is, I think we're going to experience a lot of that during the campaign. So a little bit about me. You'll have had the leaflets today, so I won't go too much into it. I'm a politics graduate. I've just returned from Sweden, where I was doing a master's for a couple of years in European affairs. So politics, and especially Europe, is more my expertise. Unfortunately, I didn't come back with a gorgeous blonde that I was hoping from Sweden, and just a large overdraft. That's about all I did get apart from the masters. But apart from that, I'm not a professional politician. I actually have had a proper job as well, and my proper job, I was a secondary school teacher. And I worked in secondary schools across the East Midlands. The thing about being a councillor in Nottingham was that I wasn't allowed to work in any of the schools there. So I've been out in Leicestershire, I've been out in Grantham, I've been out in lots of different places. So I'd like to think I have a winning track record. I first got elected when I was 22. I was a councillor for 8 years. I was a group leader as well. I think during that time I showed that I actually am prepared to do a lot of work. I'm a winner and I'm reliable. And I'm not a person who is actually going to cause the party trouble, because I'm a person that I think can be trusted and can be responsible. Why do I want to be an MEP then? Well, I think over the years, I think we've realised, and especially during my time as a councillor, you realise how important the European Union is in terms of our everyday lives, and how the knock-on effects of a lot of stuff they do affects us every day, even when we don't always realise it. There's a number of areas I'd like to talk about now, and forgive me, I'll sound quite negative at first, and then I'll maybe change a little afterwards. One of the areas I'm very concerned about, I think, in terms of law and justice, and in that area, in terms of the human rights laws that we see regularly, in terms of terror suspects, we've had it in the news quite a lot, and unfortunately I think that we're losing our sovereignty and our powers to actually deal with some of these things. It's not directly always the European Union, sometimes it's the Council of Europe. For me, they're all connected. It's all part of the bigger picture. And whether it's that, or whether it's telling us that we have to give the right to vote to prisoners, or whether it's things like the European arrest warrant, for example. I think you might have seen in the news recently 30 or 40 people were arrested in Portugal for playing bingo in a bar because it was unlicensed gambling. The prize was a tray of biscuits, but I think that shows, you know, would you want to maybe extradite somebody from the UK where they're not guaranteed trial by jury or guilty, innocent until proven guilty, as part of something like that? So I'm glad that we're not currently signed up with that, and I hope that we won't be doing in the future. In terms of the economy, I think we're seeing a growing north-south imbalance in the European Union. I think it's becoming very closed and uncompetitive, and I think there's been too much expansion too fast. And the political project of the European Union is causing part of the economic problem, I feel. Whether it's to do with it's very different cultured areas, different working patterns, things like the working time directive that affect a lot of our companies. Obviously we have different working patterns here than we have in France or than we have in the Mediterranean. You can't have a one-size-fits-all thing, so that's one problem. In terms of the environment, I think everybody who's had their British gas bill or whatever through would notice that our energy bills are going up quite considerably. Again, this is a knock-on effect for me of some of the European Union's policies. Things like the emission trading policies. And the East Midlands is a very energy-intensive area. We have a lot of manufacturing, we have a lot of heavy goods that maybe disproportionately can be affected by some of these things. Also, for example, the airlines and the way that the airlines are treated. East Midlands Airport in the last 5 years has had a 1.5 million drop in the number of passengers it receives. Some of that will be due to the economy. I think some of it is because we're struggling competitively in Europe. Finally, next to the economy and jobs though, I think the main area for me, and I think it needs to be a priority for us, and it's a very difficult issue to touch on, but I think the immigration issue is key at the moment, and especially in the East Midlands, this is something that is affecting us greatly. I think it's affecting us mainly because we don't necessarily have control over something. And when you don't have control over something, it's very difficult to plan for it. I think it's affecting the wages in the area. I think it's affecting the welfare. not necessarily welfare of people coming in. I think that could be an issue when Romania and Bulgaria have the restrictions taken, but it has an effect on jobs at the lower end of the scale, and I think, and when the wages are driven down, more local people are likely to be on welfare as a result. It also has a knock-on effect on things like healthcare and schools and housing, as I've seen. For example, if you went to Spain and you wanted to show one of your health insurance cards that you have in Europe now, apparently a lot of the hospitals are not accepting those. So I think that we need that control back. Finally, something positive about the EU. I think it can be a good thing. I think we can change it. I think we can have free trade rather than protectionism, and the European Union that Margaret Thatcher thought was worth fighting for. So I think we can reform it. We should give it one last go. If we can't make the European Union work for us, then I think we need to reconsider whether it's a good thing or not. We can beat UKIP, we need to listen to people. And we'll listen because we're local people, we're feeling the same things the public are feeling. We need to get out there and we need to show them that. Thank you very much.